1.5, multiplying real numbers. We're going to look at the handout, explain what it means. You know, when you multiply a positive and a positive, you get a positive, right? Like 2 times 3 is 6. It's a positive number. Okay? So this is your normal multiply. Didn't even really need to put it on there. You already knew that. Here is where multiplying and adding is different. If you multiply a negative and a negative, you get a positive. It's kind of like having a negative and then you're doing the opposite of it. How we had like negative, negative x on one of the other earlier sections. Or how you're changing minus a negative to adding. These two negatives together make a positive. Okay? So if you multiply a negative number, you get a positive. If you multiply opposite signs, you will get negative. You don't see which one's larger, nothing like that. This works for both multiplication and division. Okay? There's your rules right there. So when you see a multiplication problem, like -6 times -4. You look at 2 negatives here, you already know it's positive. The multiplication part's just normal. 6 times 4 is 24. Okay. Multiplication may be shown with the dot. You may have a multiply a times sign, a +6 and a -4. Well, if you have different signs, positive and negative is negative. And it's still 24. Okay. They may be touching. You may have parentheses that are touching. That's also multiply. -6 and a +4. What's that one? Same as that. -24. Okay. Let's say, what if you have a string of multiplication, like a bunch of them multiply. Let's say you have -6 times -1 times a +2 times -3 times a +1 and times a -2. Okay, to find, first of all, what sign is your answer? If you have an even amount of negatives, your answer will be positive. Because you can group them into positive times positive, like that. If you have an odd amount, you can make 2 of them into positive, but you have 1 left over. Okay? So if you count up how many negatives we have here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. It's an even amount. Your answer will be positive. After that, you just do the normal multiplication. You'll just go left to right. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 times 3, 36. Times 1 is 36. Times 2, 72. And these actually can be done in any order. They don't have to be left to right. Remember, the commutative property says you can do it in any order. So you could actually, you could have grouped them. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 6, 36 times 2. You could have done 6 times 12. You could have done it in any order. Okay, how about if we have a negative to an exponent? Let's say we have -2 to the 3rd power. That exponent means you do it times itself. this many times, right? So that means -2 times -2 times -2. What's the sign going to be? Negative. The number? Not 6, right? 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Okay? How about a -1 to a big power? Okay, this is going to be an uneven amount. It's going to be odd, so we know it'll be negative. What's 1 times 1? Times 1. Times 1. 1. Okay. So you don't have to write it that many times. If it's -1 to a power, see if it's even or odd, and you know it'll be a 1.
It would be 89.
Nope, it's not 1 times 89. It's -1 89 times. -1 to the -1 to the -1 to the -1, like that. On and on and on. 89 times, not times 89. The exponent tells you how many times you multiply it times itself. Okay? So what about this one? -1 78 times.
Be positive and 1.
Yeah. It'll be positive because it's an even amount of negatives. And then 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. Okay? Okay. There's a couple of these that you have to do more than one answer on. From 67 to 74. 67, 68, those have 4 answers. From 69 to 74, those have 2 answers apiece. Okay? Because you have to plug numbers in and solve them. So 67 and 68 have 4 answers. 69 through 74 have 2 answers. Okay? Number 67, it wants you to do, I'll do that one because I think you have to do 68. Show you how to get all 4 answers. 67 says to evaluate -x in parentheses squared, and you need to evaluate -x without the parentheses with this squared. And you have to evaluate both of those for x equals 4 and x equals -4. So you need to decide what order we want to do these in. Why don't we evaluate this one for x, 4, and then we'll do the same one for x is -4. Okay, let's do that, and then we'll do this one for each one. So we're going to have -x in parentheses squared for x equals -4. We'll do that one first. Then we'll do this for x equals 4. Okay? Then we'll do that one after. We'll come back and get that one. Okay, so first of all, where the x is, we're going to put this. I'm going to turn these parentheses right here into brackets, because we have parentheses inside here. So when we put the -4 where the x is, that's right here, we have this negative in front of it. So you keep this negative in front of it, replace that, and you have a squared out here. Okay. Minus negative, remember we turned that into positive, right? Plus positive, or just make this a positive. So that makes this 4 squared, which is what? Yeah, not 8, it's 16, right? 4 times 4. Okay, so that's one of your answers. Now let's do it for a positive 4. I'm just putting my parentheses where the x is right here. Now I'm going to put it in there. Okay. This doesn't turn to positive. That stays negative 4. Right? Which means negative 4 times negative 4, right? Negative 4 times negative 4 is what? It's still positive 16. Okay, so 2 of your answers are positive 16. Now we're going to do the other problem for both positive and negative 4. So let me write this other problem down. Negative x squared. This is not in parentheses anymore. That's the difference. We're going to do it for x equals negative 4. And we're going to do it for x equals 4. Okay, so this one, the x is here. We're going to replace this x with the number. See the difference here? The x in here got squared. The negative part got taken care of, and that got squared. This, the only thing that's getting squared is going to be the part that's the x. Okay, so put the negative 4 here. Okay, do not change this, because the squared part goes to this. This negative stays here. This part is squared. So this could turn into positive 16, but then you still have this other negative. You have 3 negatives, your answer's negative. Or you could say this negative and then that's 16. Either way, this comes out negative 16. I like to just count the negatives, say 1, 2, 3 gives me a negative. So that answer's negative 16. So it changed it from a positive to a negative. Let's do this one. The negative part's not squared. Replace x with 4. That means this negative stays. This is the only part that's squared. This right here. That one also gives us a negative 16. So you got 4 answers. 16, 16, negative 16, negative 16. So number 68 would be the same way. You'll probably have 2 positives and 2 negatives. Okay? You have any trouble evaluating where you plug a number in? We'll do one more, like, where you evaluate. Let's do like number 71 here. It wants you to evaluate this, 5x squared, when x equals 2 and x equals negative 2. That means you got 2 answers. When you plug it in to evaluate it, put parentheses where the x is and then plug it in. So we're doing this one first. This means the 5 stays here. Don't multiply this yet. Remember, order of operations, you have to do exponents before you start multiplying. Nothing inside the parentheses to do yet, but you have to take care of this exponent part. You're doing this 2 times. And now we can multiply. 10 times 2 is 20. Okay, now let's do the same problem, the 5x squared, for x is negative 2. So put parentheses where the x is, replace it with negative 2. This means 5, the negative 2 got squared, so it's times itself. This is going to be a positive or negative answer? It's It's even amount, so it's positive. If it was an odd amount, it would be negative. Two negatives make a positive, so you have the same answer twice. Okay? And the skills maintenance gives you some prime factorization, which we've already reviewed when we were doing least common multiple. And it has you simplifying or reducing fractions, so I think you can do those without us reviewing it. Any questions over this? Look at your problem, see if you have any questions. If there's no questions, that's gonna be it for the lecture part. Questions? Okay.